Now I'm going to talk about finding x and y intercepts. Okay, recall what a y-intercept is. Well, a y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. But crosses the y-axis means its x value must be 0. Thus, the bottom line is the way you find a y-intercept is you set x equals 0 and solve for y. Particular example, let's look at this equation here. Y equal x squared plus 2x plus 3. If you want to find the y-intercept, what do? You set x equals 0 and solve for y. Well, if I set x equals 0 here, I get what? 0 squared plus 2 times 0, add 3. 0, 0, add 3 are just a value of 3. That tells me the y-intercept occurs at 0, 3, that point. Well, let's find the y-intercept again for this function. Y equals minus 4 in absolute value, x minus 4 in absolute value, plus 2. What do? We set x equals 0. We get the absolute value of 0 minus 4, add 2, which is the absolute value of minus 4, add 2, or 4 add 2, or 6. Therefore, the y-intercept of this equation right here is 0, 6. So how do you find the y-intercept? You set x equals 0 and solve for y. How do you find an x-intercept? Well, an x-intercept corresponds to where it crosses the x-axis. But if it crosses the x-axis, then y is equal to 0. So how do you find an x-intercept? The answer is you set y equals 0 and solve for x. Let's look at a couple of examples. Suppose I have this equation here. Y is equal to x squared plus 2x. If I'm interested in finding the x-intercepts, I set y equals 0. So I get 0 is x squared plus 2x. And so I factor x squared plus 2x because it has a common factor of x in it. And I get 0 is x times x plus 2. Well, here I have two things multiplied that gives me 0. What can I say? One of them has to be 0. So either x is 0 or x plus 2 is 0. Which says x is 0, or this one, subtract 2 from both sides, x is equal to minus 2. So my solution to this equation is 0 or minus 2, hence the x-intercepts are what? X is 0 and y is 0, or x is 0, rather x is minus 2, and y is 0, right? So x either has a value of 0 or minus 2. And remember, if it's an x-intercept, y has to have a value of 0. Finally, let's look at the equation y is equal to the absolute value of x minus 3 minus 2. How could I find the x-intercepts there? Well, again, x-intercepts correspond to where y is equal to 0. So I take this equation up here, I plug in y equals 0, and I get that. 0 is the absolute value of x minus 3 subtract 2. I add 2 to both sides, and now I'm back solving an absolute value inequality like we have in the past. How can that happen? Only if the inside, x minus 3, were 2, or the inside, x minus 3, happened to be minus 2. So I solve x minus 3 equals 2. That gives me x equals 3 plus 2, or x is 5. And I solve x minus 3 equals minus 2, the other one. That gives me, if I add 3 to both sides, x equals 3 minus 2, or x equals 1. So what are my x-intercepts in that case? And the answer is the point 5 comma 0 or the point 1 comma 0. Remember, for an x-intercept, y has to have a value of 0. All right, finally, let's find both the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts for y equal 3 minus x, or minus 6. All right, so y is 3x minus 6. I think I finally get it right, okay? So what's the x-intercept? I set y equals 0. I get this equation here. 0 is 3x subtract 6. Add 6 to both sides. 6 equals 3x. Divide both sides by 3. X is 2. And that gives me an x-intercept of what? 2 comma 0. For the y-intercept, how do I do it? Well, I set x equals 0. So I start with y is 3x minus 6. Y is 3 times 0 minus 6. That's 0 minus 6, or minus 6. Thus, the y-intercept is x is 0 and y is minus 6. And that's how one finds x-intercepts and y-intercepts for actually any equation.